Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hark the Pod. I believe episode 9, coming into you guys hot after a very, very long night. So as some of you guys may know, we record on Sundays, which means that we are recording the same day. Yes, the same day, not the next day, of the double overtime UNC Duke football game. I think I remember checking the clock it was about 1 a.m. this morning, and Cedric Gray was just taking the podium to start his post-game presser. So that just kind of gives you an idea of kind of the level of sleep that we're running on right now. So just keep that in mind as you're listening. Again, from a standpoint of hunger, from a standpoint of who wants some more. But anyways, long introductions aside, I, of course, am Shelby Swanson, DTH sports editor. I'm here with Gwen, assistant sports editor. Gwen, how's it going?
It's going pretty well, a bit tired, but other than that, can't complain.
Yeah, me and GP's probably got a combined 10 hours of sleep between us if we're lucky.
That is really generous.
If we're lucky, that's really generous. So
I'd say 7?
Maybe. Yeah, I got 5 personally.
Really?
Yeah, so
not me.
Flex. But and then we are here joined by Daniel Way, the other assistant sports editor who was spared from the late night's stay at Keene Stadium, but got into some pretty fun action on Friday night. If you want to tell the folks a little bit about that, preview our discussion later.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about Caleb Love in Arizona and his return to Cameron. Yeah, we can jump into football first, though. So
I'm down. CBTM.
The number 24 UNC football team secured a 47-45 double overtime victory against Duke in his final home game. Sophomore quarterback Drake Maye led with 342 passing yards, connecting with junior wide receiver Tez Walker for 162 yards, while sophomore running back Omarion Hampton rushed for 169 yards. So Duke initially surged ahead in regulation, going up 36-33 with a touchdown by wide receiver Jordan Moore. UNC's kicker Noah Burnett then made it the crucial 43-yard field goal,
clutch,
tying the game and forcing overtime. Gwen, you wrote about Noah Burnett's role in the win for the Daily Tar Heel. Although you guys didn't get to speak to Burnett after the game,
sad.
A lot of his teammates seemed to have a lot to say about, obviously, his impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but...
Yeah. So not only, I just want to point out before I start talking about his teammates, not only did he make that clutch field goal, but he also made all 6 field goal attempts of the night and 3 extra point attempts. So he racked up 21 of the total points for UNC.
Was he the leading scorer, quote unquote?
I mean,
one could say.
I think one could definitely say that.
One could say that, but yeah, no. And I mean, I know, and I'm gonna let you get into it, but you wrote about this obviously in your sidebar. But a inconsistent night for UNC on the defensive end, which we're kind of used to at this point, but also on the offensive end, especially in terms of red zone efficiency, specifically in terms of driving into the red zone and then being able to convert the opportunity into a touchdown. That wasn't happening, but they bring out Old Faithful Noah Burnett, and he was able to, pull through. So
so he came up really big in multiple instances for UNC, and then again had a game-tying field goal in overtime as well in the first overtime period. But yeah, so like Daniel mentioned, we didn't get to speak to him after the game, but all of his teammates that did come out and speak to us had some pretty nice words to say about him. Like we mentioned, he was kind of the rock on which UNC kind of relied on throughout the whole game. When the offense didn't make it into the end zone, they just brought out Noah Burnett, and seemed like he made every single kick. So yeah, I mean, I think first Drake Maye came out and talked about him. Said he wanted to take him out to dinner this week.
Okay. It's giving Texas Roadhouse, if you know, you know.
Yeah. Said I think the team should raise him up on their shoulders and parade him around the field.
Lift him up.
Pretty colorful. But then he kind of did lock in and talk a little about the work that Burnett has been doing in practice to prepare for a moment like this, especially considering last season, which was Burnett's first season really stepping into the role of place kicker for the Tar Heels. And he struggled a bit, especially at the end of the season. That last home game of last season against State was also a double overtime game. But in that instance, Burnett was not able to make, I think it was a 35-yard field goal.
And you were at that game, Daniel. You remember?
It was on my birthday, our birthday.
Our
Gwen.
birthday.
I was with Evan Rogers.
Shout out.
It took so long. Yeah.
And yeah, so he fell short in that instance, and a lot of people said he lost UNC the game. I don't know how fair that is, but he definitely did not make.
He took a lot of heat, for
he
sure.
did not make the field goal though.
For sure.
I mean, kicking's a thankless job.
Right.
Like, you have all the expectation, you get all the blame, but then none of the credit at the same time. So
No, let's speak on it. Shouts out to all my kickers out there. Like, we see you. Okay, we see you on HTP. But yeah, no, I mean, he got a lot of heat for that. And I want to say in your article you wrote about that's kind of why he's been so locked in terms of practicing and drilling his placekeeping, because he just didn't want to end up in another situation like that.
Exactly. And that's kind of what a lot of his teammates talked about in the post-game press conference. Obviously, like, he's just locked in so hard to practicing kind of those last minute like clutch like kicks that you could let the nerves get to you, but he clearly didn't. And I think it's also an interesting thing to consider. UNC brought in Ryan Coe at the beginning of the season. Didn't seem like Burnett was going to start, but then because of an injury, he's been the go-to guy, and he really has stepped into that role. And so it was just kind of a full circle moment, a callback to that state game last year, but this time with a much different outcome. So yeah, I think that was really what they had to say. I mean, Cedric Gray talked a lot about how proud he was. Bryson Nesbitt also talked about how he had full confidence in Burnett, but it was really just came down to that level of practice and comfortability.
Yeah, for sure. Shelby, you wrote out Drake Maye in what could be his final game at King Stadium. Obviously, he was important, pretty much as always, to this UNC football team, just like last year's Duke game when they won with like 16 seconds left, that pass to Antoine Green. But yeah, despite facing challenges, including interception, Maye led the team to success, scoring a 1-yard quarterback keeper in the opening drive and later coming up clutch with a touchdown throw to Bryson Nesbitt in the fourth quarter and a 5-yard rush and 2-point conversion connection with John Copenhaver in overtime. So how is a game like this representative of Drake's career, assuming we all think he's going to the draft at this point? So yeah, Shelby, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of got a little bit of everything with Drake Maye in this game. And while it wasn't the most consistent performance throughout the game, after that 1-yard quarterback keeper, I think there wasn't a passing touchdown until that connection with Nesbitt in the fourth quarter, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it was like the last 2 minutes of regulation.
Right, so a little bit inconsistent, but when he needed to come through and come up for the team, he was able to. And it's something that I think we talked a lot about this with him in post-game pressers as well as his teammates and Mac Brown, but those two losses to UVA and Georgia Tech really weigh heavily on a kid like Drake Maye. That's, while most people can kind of sit back like us, journalist, member of the media, and say that, okay, there's kind of the defense's fault in both of those games. He's somebody, if he has the ball in his hands at the end of the game, he's going to blame himself.
Right.
But we were able to see him put on a performance kind of akin to the App State overtime victory, where he just pulled through for the team. Really just clutch performance all around, and he was able to maintain composure. Mac Brown talked about this after the game, that when they were down by 3 points, 41 seconds left, he kind of got Drake Maye's attention. Drake saying to Mac Brown, like, no, we got it. We're good. And just the composure even on, I remember seeing, and I was on the field at this point, for, I think it was the last drive of UNC's last drive in the second overtime period. When Drake Maye, he's barreling towards the end zone, spins around, extends his arm right to record that touchdown. He pops right back up and just walks to the middle of the field, and he's holding up his fingers for two. Like, immediately, that's where his head's at. So just, again, the level of composure, and then immediately afterwards on that next play, he's driving to the end zone again, basically clothespin by two defenders, and just kind of keeps his head up, pops the ball over to John Copenhaver in the end zone, really heads up play. And so you're kind of seeing all the tools in the wheelhouse there. Didn't mention also just his connections with Tez Walker downfield. I think Walker again led
Yeah.
all receivers
Yes, he
in
did.
yardage. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I mean, had some incredibly explosive, like 40+ yard
Three,
catches.
I think, yeah.
So, you're seeing that. You're seeing Drake Maye's ability to just, put the game, kind of put the team on his shoulders, just barrel to the end zone, keep his head up in terms of that connection with Copenhagen. Also saw it when he kind of lateraled the ball to Amari and Hampton. I think it was like the third or fourth quarter where he made that play. Really nifty. And yeah, I mean, just what a way to, if we're assuming this is his last game at Keenan, right? Send him out. He called it himself a fairy tale ending.
Yep.
I think he said like hell of a fair ending at one point, all but saying that he's going to leave for the draft. And of course, he's a pretty much consensus top 3 NFL draft pick, if not number 1 overall. But again, with Caleb Williams, like there's some debate there. Yeah, a lot of emotions after the game. He was kind of joking about with all the fans surrounding him. He didn't know where to go. Like people were just slapping him. He's like
exit points.
Yeah, like I think talked about just he was trying to just find a way out, and then Cedric Gray said a similar thing. Said was looking for the exit points.
Yeah.
It was funny just to hear them talk about their emotions with the fans rushing the crowd. But you think back to the last time that fans stormed the field at Keenan, that was
Wake Forest.
The upset over number 9 Wake Forest in 2021. Drake was kind of recalling that, and he was like, yeah, I was basically like a nobody. I was just
he was redshirted.
I was Luke Maye's brother, but this time, everybody's surrounding him, chanting one more year, things like that. So I mean, I could go on and on about the color, the details, but I will say shout out to Keenan Stadium's policy that lets media members onto the field during the 5 final minutes of regulation, because I was out on the field for a damn minute. So shout out the 2 overtime periods, shout out that. But yeah, I mean, if this is his final game at Keenan, and it likely is, just a hell of a way to send him out.
UNC will take on Clemson on the road on Saturday. That game is set for 3:30 kickoff, and Shelby and Gwen will be there again, making that drive up and back the same day.
Yes, that's right. So me and Gwen will be driving down to Clemson on Saturday and back on Saturday.
Probably a little bit into Sunday.
You know what?
Early morning.
But like, again, who wants it more? From a standpoint of like splitting up. From a standpoint from a standpoint, if you split up the driving amongst us and 4 photographers, like that's 2.5 hours each. That's literally easy money. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm predicting another close UNC win. Not thinking, as lengthy of a game. Hopefully, I don't think it's gonna.
Dude, don't jinx that.
Hey, I mean, the way I see it, we were talking about this, but recent losses for Clemson, UNC is still again leading the conference in terms of points per game, about like just under 40, 39.9. So, Clemson, kind of a middle of the pack team in terms of defense. I don't really middle of the pack in terms of middle of the ACC. In terms of defensive performance, I don't really see them slowing that down too much.
Yeah, I agree. And like also when you factor in the loss to Miami, the loss to State,
that's
obviously
goofy.
UNC has beat Miami pretty significantly. State has been a up and down team this year, but I
get me started.
I think I don't foresee it being a blowout either way. But it'll definitely be a challenge, in Death Valley. Always something to think about.
Under the bright lights, but it is a mid-afternoon game, but you know what I mean.
3:30 game.
But yeah, that should be a fun one. But with that, I think we're going to transition into a little bit of basketball talk. We're going to be talking with senior writer Grace Nugent about just kind of her take on the first 2 UNC men's basketball games. She was at both of those. But first, a little bit of a special segment. We're going to put a pause on the UNC ball talk. I know. And talk about Arizona's win at Duke at Cameron Indoor on Friday night, because Daniel, you were there.
I was there.
Tell me about that. Why were you at an Arizona Duke game? Like, I don't get it.
So Arizona has this new player. He goes by the name of Caleb Love.
Okay. I may have heard of him.
I think I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think some people in Chapel Hill know that name.
Okay.
Some people in Durham might know that name too. But yeah.
In all seriousness, you were there to cover Caleb Love's return to Cameron. Obviously, he's playing the Blue Devils, a team that's, they have a history of some interesting matchups.
Some might say a history.
Obviously, with, the dagger to retire Coach K in the Final Four. Also, Caleb Love, you think of that photo of him with his tongue out, Armando Bacot dunking the ball in Coach K's final game at Cameron. But just tell me about, you were able to talk to him after him and Arizona upset number 2 Duke. What did he have to say? Did he reference UNC at all? And just what were your reactions to that game?
Yeah, so he actually said he talked to some former teammates earlier in the week. They told him to handle business, and he said that win was for them.
Wow.
And his Kobe's had Tar Heel 4L on his sneakers.
That means for life.
For life.
For life.
Yes.
Just in case anyone's
Slang.
not down with the lingo.
Tar Heel for life.
Yes.
Yeah. He's the same old Caleb, honestly. I'm glad he did something significant in the last minute of the game, just
because otherwise, what were you gonna
Caleb
write,
Love.
bro?
Exactly. I wasn't
What
really
were you gonna write?
I wasn't about to write.
He had 11 points.
Caleb Love's underwhelming curtain call in Cameron, but his biggest plays came at the most important parts of the game. He looks different, honestly. Has
he bulked up a bit?
Okay, I'm not gonna comment on that. I don't really know.
Okay.
I don't think so, but
I'm just saying.
in terms of
Yes.
basketball, he didn't bring up the ball once.
Good.
And
Sorry.
I think that's just a testament to Tommy Lloyd and reprogramming Caleb's mindset, because the past 3 seasons it's always been Caleb or RJ bring up the ball and Caleb, go make a play, go shoot this shot. It's he had
right.
the green light to do whatever, but a lot of times he was just staying in the corner, cutting on the baseline. Kylan Boswell, that 18-year-old guard phenom, he was really calling all the shots. But in terms of emotion, same old Caleb, talking smack to Tyrese Proctor, Jeremy Roach, all throughout the game. I asked him about it. He said, "Oh, we're just competitors." Obviously, a non-answer. I wanted to know what they were saying to each other, but obviously they're not going to disclose that. But yeah, I'm excited to see. It was refreshing to see Caleb in a new system where it felt like it really it fit his skill set a lot better than kind of just the past 3 seasons, where it was fun watching him in March. It wasn't fun watching him at all last year. Just watching him chuck up threes and all that stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we all knew that it was going to be an interesting matchup just with all the emotions surrounding, Caleb Love versus Duke, that matchup. But I think while it wasn't exactly the, breakout statistical night, that kind of, I don't know, impressive shooting performance you think of second half against UCLA in that
Sweet 16.
In the Sweet 16,
Yeah.
right? Tournament 2 years ago. Nothing like that, but he came up when his team needed him, and then at the end, bid the Cameron Crazies farewell with a little bye-bye wave to the crowd. So still got that flair, of course, but yeah, so if you guys want to read a little bit more about the emotions behind that win, be sure to check out Daniel's side. It is on the website, dailytarheel.com/sports, or, just search Daniel's name on the website. You'll find it. Yeah, but thank you for chatting up with us. Anything else to add about the atmosphere, the Cameron Crazies, the performance?
Oh yeah, obviously it was loud.
Oh, really?
It's my only time I've been in Cameron for a men's basketball game. I was there for the women's basketball game.
Oh, we remember.
UNC beat Duke with Shelby.
We remember.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
But yeah, I had to cover my ears a lot because I didn't want to damage my ears. But
yeah,
I just wasn't used to the noise. It's way louder than the Dean Dome.
This is
obviously,
that's what happens when you put students in the lower bowl.
Exactly.
All right, and now for some men's hoops talk. We have Grace in the studio to help us break down the first 2 games this season for UNC men's basketball. Obviously, the most recent being the number 19 Tar Heels win over Lehigh. That was a 90-68 victory. Thanks to a pretty dominant second half showing after, I think, what was a little bit of a back and forth first half.
Most definitely.
Most definitely. So, Grace, first of all, just how are you doing today? I heard they had Purple Bowl at the game for you guys.
Oh yeah, I ate well before the game. It was beautiful. Purple Bowl, me, Noah, Evan, Jody. What else?
What else can you want? I think we got like cold cheese pizza at the end of the fourth quarter last night.
I almost jumped for joy when I got out of that elevator and saw Purple Bowl. I'm like,
that's crazy. I ain't never seen that.
Angels were singing. It was great.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Well, I mean,
you're having a better day than us.
Yeah, I was like, I'm mad jealous.
I'm like, man.
No, putting that aside, because like I'm literally mad. But so just tell us a little bit about, after you feasted on that Purple Bowl, what went down in the game?
Yeah, well, it was the second game of the season for the Tar Heels, their second W, which was completely expected. Like, just to preface that, everything I'm about to say, obviously, we're going to go into talking about the new transfer guys and stuff like that, but they played Radford and they played Lehigh, and they won both of them just as they were, supposed to, according to the paper.
Projections,
net, the spread, money line, whatever, like, church of
whatever, like, voodoo
sports
you believe in.
Exactly.
That you applied to, they were supposed to win, and they did. And it's the second game of the season, so they're just starting to settle in.
Mm-hmm.
Their starting lineup from the past 2 games has 3 new guys, all transfers. Combined, the 5 of them have about 508 games of college basketball experience.
The 5 starters.
Yeah. So these are some old dudes.
They've like, played some games.
We've got
famously 25-year-old
Cormac Ryan.
Hey, nothing wrong with that, man.
I can't wait to talk about him.
Me when Cormac Ryan is older than Aaron Matson.
Actually, it's unreal. Like, we have Cormac, we have Harrison
You'll ever
Ingram,
think about that.
RJ, Mondo, Paxton Wojcik. Anyway, still sporting the headband after the Tar Heel on Tar Heel violence from the first.
Yeah, like, I'm wondering how long it's going to take for that scar to heal. Like, can we get a time-lapse thing kind of going?
We should. Shout out Noah's side, if anyone wants to know how he ended up with 10 stitches. It was Armando Baycott's elbow. Pre-game warm-ups.
During warm-ups. Again, hashtag unsure why.
RJ says after the game.
Group.
Yeah, they're that.
RJ says after the game, we got guys that are willing to put their bodies on the line.
A different type of fire.
Exactly.
Hey.
Speaking of fire, let's talk about the scoring. Anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, trying to transition there.
Yeah, you
Don't
got that.
think it worked that well. But here we go.
No, you
I'll
got
just kind of glaze over like the new guy, the people to watch from the last 2 games. We have Armando, obviously. You think Carolina basketball? Armando. Obviously Michael Jordan, but like second to him, Armando Baycott.
That's exactly where my mind goes.
Obviously, UNC big man is headlining the team. He already has 2 double-doubles, 25 points and 13 rebounds. Then tonight, or this afternoon actually, 22 points and 20 rebounds. He's playing well in the post. He's
feasting.
He is feasting. He's got a new hairstyle that he's rocking.
What we got going on today?
I just feel like he always has like a new hairdo.
He does. He changes his hair up
He's
a lot.
quite the fashionista with that. I really love. I love to see it.
Some have said.
Some have said.
Sources say.
Anyway, RJ too. He's.
Oh yeah, he's killing it again. 50% from 3 against Lehigh this afternoon and 22 points against Radford. He seemed to be more like it was more of a warm up game. He was kind of some trepidation about his shots and in the paint, but he's getting back to it. And then the new faces, I'll start it off with my personal favorite because he's from Texas.
If you guys don't know,
I'm from Texas.
Grace is from Texas. We're just going to put that
and
out
I won't
there.
let anyone forget it. Anyway, this is Harrison Ingram. He's a junior transfer from Stanford. And according to Armando, he is built like a tank, which is true. He can shoot. He can block. He had 2 blocks against Radford. And he just has great mobility for a guy that's 6'7", 235 pounds. And he also just has, like, the best energy. Like,
he's a funny dude.
Yeah, all of his teammates famously love him.
He's a great dude. He, after Radford, he talked about how nervous he was. And he said, I was fine during class, and then I saw all the fans, and I was like, oh, God, I'm here.
Geeked.
And it took him 15 minutes to calm down. And today he talked
it.
about, too, he's like, I still can't believe that I'm, like, playing here, but it's so much fun. He's like, I'm so glad you have that mentality. And then we have everyone's favorite fireballer and resident old person, Cormac Ryan.
That's crazy.
The water cooler,
Resident old person.
the water cooler
amazing.
kicker, the basketball punter, etc.
He has been
cetera,
described
et cetera.
as the guy you love to have on your team, but you absolutely hate him if he's on the other. He brings the fire. He's a big talker. He kind of just like flails around the court. I think within 5 minutes today, he like fell into the photographers / people in the stands behind the basket at least 3 times.
Right.
But he
Good.
uses that big frame to his advantage, and he goes and he's just puts it all out there.
You know what? Puts it on the
He
floor.
wants to win. He wants
He-
to win.
He really needs it. He hates losing,
needs to
loves
win.
winning, but I think
Yeah.
he hates losing even more.
Don't catch him after a loss.
Mm-mm.
I
That's
would
all-
not want to be
That's all I'm gonna say. I wouldn't want to be there. And then yeah, let's talk about Elliot.
let's talk about Elliot. Who doesn't want to talk about Elliot? I feel like there's so much hype around him after he reclassified. Now he's here. Defensively, maybe not the strongest person on the court.
We're working on that.
That's
Hey,
to be expected.
he's a
He's
freshman.
young.
Right.
He's learning.
Reclass.
He was subbed in after 4 minutes against Lehigh, which is pretty early substitution. He really does embody, he's a self-proclaimed pass-first guard mentality. He had 6 assists against Radford. He had his first 3 today. D&M got real excited for
How'd
that
it
one.
look?
okay.
It looked good.
How was like the rotation? Like, are we like?
I think it was pretty rotating.
It was pretty.
pretty
It was
good.
pretty rotating.
It was pretty
Okay,
rotating.
okay.
It was,
That's what I
as,
might say.
as Seth Trimble would say, it was groovy.
Oh, okay.
Actually, we'll get
okay.
to that in a minute.
We'll get to. Okay, yeah.
He's really just starting his development. Like, he is a freshman. He's super young because he reclassified. So he's just, getting to know the college game, getting to know all the guys. Today at the presser after the game, Seth Trimble said that Elliot is groovy, creative, and confident, and just has the ability to make plays for
adjectives.
himself, but not just for
Groovy.
himself, but for his teammates. And you can really see him starting to like learn to do that on the court, kind of make it his own. But in summation, the first 2 games, they're working on that defensive tempo. Very different teams. They've played offensively. Radford works more in the paint and the post, and then Lehigh shoots from the perimeter.
Some shooters.
Yeah. So this afternoon was taxing defensively because they worked in 20 to 25 second defensive sets. So they were really working that conditioning. But they play UC Riverside on Friday, and 3rd game of the season, 3rd home game. They're just starting to figure it out. So we'll see where Carolina men's hoops goes.
Yeah.
We'll see. Well, thank you very much for that special report, Grace.
Thank you, guys.
And now, with that ball talk, it is time finally for some quick hits. Can I get a quick hits?
Quick hits.
Oof, guys, come on. We got it down to a science, but starting off in men's soccer news, the number 7 seed North Carolina men's soccer team lost in a penalty shootout. It was a 1-1 tie, and then in penalties, 5-3 loss. This was against number 4 seed Clemson, the ACC championship game. That happening Sunday afternoon in Cary. We were actually, fun fact, a little behind the scenes, we were going to have Brendan Lunga, our senior beat writer for the men's soccer team, join us on the pod, but I think he is currently still stuck in that traffic coming back from Cary, so shout out. But we will have plenty of coverage from him, and I believe Cade Shoemaker on the website, so you can figure out how that game went down and how North Carolina men's soccer made that unexpected run to get to that ACC championship game. And in volleyball news, UNC fell to number 5 Louisville in 3 straight sets on the road. That was over the weekend. And read Hannah Smith's Gamer for more information on that. In women's soccer news, the number 3 seeded women's soccer team defeated Towson. That is 3-1, the final score on that. Allie Sentner was pretty active in that one, or so I've read. So first round win of the NCAA tournament. Women's soccer is moving on, and they will face Alabama in the second round. So stay tuned for more coverage from Harry Cruther, as well as Noah Monroe. In field hockey news, on Sunday afternoon, the number 1 UNC field hockey team beat number 8 Harvard 4-2 to advance the NCAA Final Four, where the Tar Heels will face Virginia. You can read more about that game on our website, where we will have a gamer by Jarrett Kidd and a side by Caroline Wills. And of course, as we mentioned in our last podcast, which if you haven't checked it out, you should check it out. We have special guest UNC head coach Aaron Matson on. All of this NCAA postseason action for field hockey is happening in Karen Shelton Stadium in Chapel Hill. So we're going to have tons of great coverage for that. Don't have to travel far. Some surprises potentially up our sleeves depending on, how the season ends up, but we're gonna tease
Keep your eyes
that.
peeled.
Keep your eyes peeled. And finally, in women's basketball news, at the time of this recording, the UNC women's basketball team is taking on Davidson at home. Who knows what happened? I don't know, but you can find out. Read more about that game on our website. I believe we have Chumasi on the gamer, Ben McCormick on the sidebar. We were going to have Matthew Maynard on that game, but of course the UNC Duke Chronicle flag football game happened.
Right.
Just wanted to take a moment to mention that.
Yeah, I was about to shout it out in quick hits, but you beat me to it.
No, I mean, you go ahead. Just if you want to just save me the pain of rehashing that and just talk about that briefly.
Really a tough memory.
Yeah, so Saturday morning before the Duke UNC football game, the DTH took on the Chronicle, Duke's student newspaper, in a flag football game in enemy territory, some might say.
Territory.
At Duke. And sadly, we, being the DTH, lost in double
overtime.
Yep, it was like a freaky preview of the actual football game.
I should have known right then.
Yeah.
It was a tough loss, but you know who kept us in it? Grace.
Honestly, Grace, the coaching of Grace, Cade Shoemaker, I believe, our MVP.
I earned some new names, guys.
Grace was drawing up schemes on her phone. It was crazy. The Caleb Love shooting percentage scheme that literally got us back into the game.
Yeah,
it got us back into the game.
I have two alter egos now: Grace Lindsay and Grace Chiswick. Right.
Which side do you want? You know what I mean?
I waffle between that every day. Which one should I be?
But yeah, and I fear Matthew Maynard suffered a game time injury. He was giving it his all. But,
prayers up for a fallen soldier.
Don't know if it's a concussion yet, but like possibly.
He's pushing through.
He's alive though. We
checked
a few hours
in on
him last night.
He's drinking water.
He was drinking water. He went to the game.
He was alive. Spotted at the game.
Yeah.
Good. That's really good to hear. But of course, didn't want to tax his mind too much on that basketball coverage because of course, all our DTHers, we want them to be alert 100%. So pulled him off of that. But again, plenty of coverage for you guys from Ben Chumasi. And with that, gonna wrap it up finally, guys. Just thank you so much for listening to Hark the Pod. Be sure to keep a lookout for the next episode next week. This episode was brought to you by me, Shelby Swanson, Daniel Way, Gwen Peace, and a special thanks to our guest, Grace Nugent. And finally, thanks as always to our audiovisual team and Adrian Tillman for the theme music.